Hello and welcome to All Things Football, the second episode. I'm Jay Drackford and today joining me is co-host Lee Allenson. Hey Lee, how you doing, mate?
Very well, Jay. Thank you, mate.
Good. Thanks, before we get going on today's episode, to everyone that listened to episode 1 with Darren Currie. The comments have been absolutely brilliant and I think, speaking on behalf of both of us, it's going to push us to do a lot more. What do you reckon, mate?
Yeah, definitely, mate. I think Darren was brilliant on Monday, and hopefully, mate, we can get some more really good guests, starting with the one today.
Who we got today then?
So we've got today 614 Football League appearances. I think that in its own right is huge. Some of the clubs that he's played for are very, very big clubs. I'm looking forward to finding out a little bit more. Current Barnet manager. We now speak to Darren Currie. Darren, how are you, mate?
Afternoon, boys. I'm good, thank you.
Good. How's things? How's life at the moment?
Yeah, pretty samey, isn't it, for all of us at the minute? Every day, getting up, trying to put a bit of structure in place without leaving the house. But no, I mean, I'm finding it okay. When you're a football person, as you are yourself, Lee, it's kind of no different to that sort of off-season period where you do a lot of pottering around your house and not a great deal gets done. A lot of work gets done on the phone. So it feels quite natural for me to sort of have these days where you're sort of stuck around the house. But my kids are starting to climb the walls a little bit. They're getting a bit frustrated. And my wife, being a teacher, she's delighted to be at home rather than at work with all the kids.
I bet
It does feel like summer holidays, doesn't it? I work in a school myself and it's just bizarre, but you kind of get into that frame of mind that today's another day ended in Y and there's not much going on.
I think the one thing that probably most people have tried to do, I know we've tried to do it, is just have a little structure in place. So we get up and, me and my wife go for a run every morning, and then the kids fall out of bed at about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and we have some breakfast, and then we just pretty much tidy every corner of the house over and over. There's always another job to do, which I'm sure is the same for everyone. And then, we just try and make the most of getting this opportunity of being together because, the kids grow up quickly and we enjoy sitting around the table, having a few games after dinner, and then tend to finish the night watching a film. But like I say, it's getting a bit samey now.
It is. I mean, I think that what you just said there is great, spending time with the kids, especially like with us as well, with Betty and stuff like that. And I think what people have to accept is it's one of them things at the moment. You have good days and you have bad days. And when you've got the good days, you try and be positive, and the bad days you have to accept and get on with it. And, hopefully this will be over soon and we can all be back to doing what we love.
For us, Lee, we're involved in football. So, we're very fortunate that we get paid for our hobby and our love anyway. So, for us, it's just missing that day-to-day, being around the team, having a ball at your feet, putting on sessions, etc. But what I would say is, and this is how I look at it, the government have asked us all to do one thing, and that's stay at home. And at the end of the day, us as a family, we're doing as much as we can to help the situation by staying at home and adhering to the rules that have been put in place. Now, very quickly, before you know it, everything will be going 100 mile an hour again. And these moments might be few and far between. So while we've got these moments, we're trying to enjoy it.
Exactly, mate. No, thank you for that, Darren. So, mate, we'll start off, obviously, Darren Currie. What was you like as a kid? Where did you start? Who did you start playing for? When did you start falling in love with football? Was it early age? And how did it all come about, mate?
So pretty much from day one, the first times I was able to walk and run around and have a ball at my feet, I was a little toddler. My dad played quite a few non-league clubs, and I think at the time, I was born in 74, so at the time, my early years, 2, 3, 4 years old, my dad was playing at Dagenham, happened to play at Wembley in 1977, the year my brother was born. And I've got a picture of me with this, what looks like a giant-sized football, but it's only where I'm so tiny, it looks like half my body. But I've got this ball at my feet that looks way too big for me, and I've got a little Darren for Daggers shirt on, and I think I must have only been about 2.5 years old. So that's my earliest memory of having a ball at my feet. And then, I just from my earliest memory has just been an obsession of mine. I've loved having a ball at my feet, loved having a kick around. And, you know, from our era back in the day, obviously nowadays you've got social media, there's so many distractions for kids, but back in the day it was home from school, quick snack, get a kit on, get the ball, round up the lads round where I used to live, find a bit of grass, put some coats down and pick 2 teams and get on with it until the sun went in. And that was from probably 6-7 years old right up until pretty much I left home when I was about 16.
Yeah.
Who was your favourite team as a child growing up?
Listen, I was a glory hunter, I'm not going to lie. So in the early years, I followed my uncle because obviously Tony played, so I was a QPR fan through him. But being a glory hunter, like the 80s was all about Liverpool, so they were the team that I used to follow. But you know, I'd flick to Tottenham for a bit when I fell in love with Glenn Hoddle. So I'm a bit, you know, as long as I see good football and good players, I can watch any game. I know Lee's been watching a lot of football in this time off, having spoke before this interview. And if there's a game on, I'll watch it. So, you know, it's just that obsession.
When obviously it's very different now, Darren. We spoke to Sally about it the other day, and growing up as a kid in your day and very much in mine, there was academy football, but it was very different to how it is now. And you'd be in an academy, you'd train, you'd still be able to play for your Sunday team. And was that similar for you when you was growing up? Was it about Sunday football or Saturday football with your mates? And I know you had a very good side as a Sunday team at Forest. Was it Forest United?
Forest United, yeah. I mean, yeah, there was still professional clubs, obviously, picking up the kids along the way, and it was a school of excellence, they might have called it back in the day. But along with your school and your borough and your county, obviously if you was good enough and fortunate enough, but your school, your borough, your county, your Sunday team, you know, you could find yourself out of the house, and my mum and dad would vouch for that with how much driving around they had to do. You was out of the house at least 6 nights of the week, with all the football that was going on. So I know the system's changed now. Kids get picked up very young at a very early age. And what concerns me with that is you take away, you know, people talk about getting 10,000 touches, and there's loads of theories on how you can make yourself better. But there's no doubt in my mind that the way life was when I was growing up, and there was training every night of the week, there was games at the weekend, and then you played on Sunday morning for Forest United. I probably had 100,000 touches a week, not just 10,000, and that was because I was playing for various different teams every day of the week. Now, the flip side to that would have been, people used to talk about picking up your injuries and your Oscar Slatterus and stuff like that, and I was quite fortunate to not suffer with that, although I had some teammates that did. But, you know, I wouldn't change it. I don't regret how it went, and I wouldn't change it for the modern day version of it because, you know, like I say, every day you get to kick a ball around. What more do you want?
No, I mean, just touching on that as well, because obviously for me, we had with Luca, I mean, he went into the Stevenage Academy at sort of 9, 10, 11, all the way up to sort of 14, 15. And when he left there, he'd actually never, ever played for 3 points, played for a trophy, been involved in 5-a-side tournaments or anything like that. And he kind of missed that. And you actually see that when he actually done that, the pressure had built up on him so much that at 15, he's playing for his first 3 points. And I'm not saying it's the right way to go now, but back in your day, it was all about that, wasn't it? It was all about having fun, playing competitive football at a young age. And just for me now, it's all about getting that next contract at 9, 10, 11 years of age. And parents are very pushy for that, and the pressure it puts on kids. There's no fun in it anymore for me. I think the fun's been taken out of it an awful lot.
Yeah, I'd go with that. I mean, there's 2 things about that for me. There's, you know, a lot of academy football now. It's I keep hearing people saying it's about development and it's not about winning. So if you spend from the years of 8 to 18 not learning how to win or not learning how to overcome defeat, then all of a sudden you've done well enough to get yourself, let's say, into my first team at the minute, and you've spent the last 10 years, you have no idea about how important it is to get 3 points, and you're sitting beside a guy that's wife's having his third child and they've got a mortgage to pay, and he's bleeding and sweating for the team, and you're making your debut, and you're like, well, I've never played for 3 points before. I don't agree with all that personally. No. You got to learn, and you can learn from the importance of winning. But like I say, there was a number of occasions as a kid where you was on the losing side, or when I was at Forest, we used to play against Ridgeway Rovers, which were David Beckham's team, and it was always us two in the county of Middlesex that were the sort of the favourites to win tournaments and leagues and cups and what have you. And I got let go from Watford as a kid. I got let go from Chelsea as a kid. Now, all these things must have played a part in my desire 100%. To prove people wrong and climb the ladder that I climbed. So you can, and I know it comes down to the individual, but you can sometimes learn as much from defeat as you can from success.
Yeah, totally agree, mate. Totally agree.
So how did the traineeship come about at West Ham, Darren?
So obviously I'd been playing for Forest United right the way up to under 15, under 16 level. And then the guys that were involved at Forest were also involved at Hendon. And Hendon had a youth team at the time. And it was like a youth team stroke reserve team. And we used to play at the Old Claremont Road, which was when you're 16 years old, that feels like 3 pitches all tied into one. It was gigantic, this pitch. And so I used to play there. And listen, don't get me wrong, because of Forest United, we used to gather quite a lot of attention because we did win trophies when we was kids.
You had a few pros, Darren, didn't you, in your team there? Was there a couple come out of there, pros?
There was myself, Danny Dickio was our centre forward.
Yeah.
We eventually, when we got into our older age groups, we had Micah Hyde as well, who come from Ridgeway Rovers over to Forest to join us. But yeah, because we was quite successful, we always had the club scouts coming to watch us. So when I eventually played for Hendon, there was probably 6, 7 of my Forest team within that Hendon team as well. And a guy called Frankie O'Brien, who I'm still in touch with now, still runs a college scheme that happens to train at the Hive. So we're still in daily contact. But Frankie just come along to one game on a Wednesday night at Hendon and said to me, would I be interested in going into West Ham? And I think I was 15 now, and I'd just been let go by Chelsea. And I was, it was getting to that time where the YTS gets handed out. So I went into West Ham. I wasn't there a long time before they offered me the YTS. So I don't know whether it was a quick decision or I just made a good impression early on, but I went in. I think the way I played suited the West Ham model of, ball manipulation and, how you sort of aware of your teammates. And that's my fondest memory of growing up through West Ham's youth team, is how they handle the ball. And maybe I just suited them because I certainly didn't fit in at Watford and I didn't fit in at Chelsea. So Frank got me the opportunity, and then I went into West Ham and signed my YTS forms. And at the time it was a guy called Ronnie Gale who was sort of heading all the youth. Ronnie then, if I jump a few years, when I was at Dagenham as assistant manager not so long ago, Ronnie was one of our scouts because he's just an older guy that is just obsessed with football as well. And he'd gone through his career, and he was now one of our scouts, used to come waddling in every day and like, where do you want me to go this weekend, boys? And we'd send him out to that game and that game to make some notes on players and what have you. But Ronnie was actually the under-16s manager and kind of the head of the football at West Ham. And he took to me fairly quickly, and he helped me, along the way once I'd got my YTS contract.
So would it be fair to say that obviously you didn't play for West Ham's first team? You then started your kind of more of your senior football, going out on loan to Shrewsbury Town, Leyton Orient?
Yeah, so I signed my YTS, which was, nowadays, if you sign YTS, you normally sign a 2-year YTS and about a 7-year pro, don't you? They just hand them out like confetti, don't they?
With a brand as well.
back in the day, you get a YTS and you have to graft as hard as you can to get a 1 year, and even then they make you feel like they're doing you a favour. So I was fortunate to get a 2-year professional contract, and it was Billy Bonds who gave me my first contract, and then Harry took over once Billy had left. And I had this opportunity to go out on loan. I'd been knocking on the door a little bit, playing combination league with the reserves and whatever, and I'd been doing okay. I remember scoring a couple of goals in the reserves in one game, and there was a little bit of talk about me maybe making the first team squad, and it didn't come about. And I thought to myself, I need to get out on loan. Even at an early age, I wanted to get out on loan. And then the chance to go to Shrewsbury came about, and it was a very sort of mad 24 hours, because I remember going into training on the Monday, and there was a talk about this loan deal. So then when I went, when I went in on the Tuesday, Harry had me in the office, like, right, you're going on loan to Shrewsbury. I went, okay, what do I do next? And he said, they got a game tonight, so you better get on the motorway. So I drove up to Shrewsbury that day, walked in the change room, spotty little 18-year-old with this mad spiky hair, and walked in the change room, and I got all these fellas there looking at me, and I was like, all right. And that was the first time I met them, like hour and a half before the game, and we was playing against Swansea, and I ended up scoring probably one of my best goals in my career, to be honest. Yeah. And that was it. I was obsessed and I was hooked on it then, playing in front of a crowd with something riding on it. I just took to it and never wanted to leave it.
What do you think, just with the West Ham thing, Darren, do you think, was it just the new manager coming in, you think you fell a little bit short, or it was just not the right fit in the end for you? Or because you get that 2-year deal, you think obviously you're not made it, but you're almost there, you're touching the first team. What kind of just stopped you from getting right in there in the end?
Listen, I genuinely think Harry Redknapp was a fan of mine. He liked the way I played. I had a couple of players in the first team that were ahead of me at the time. One of them, Matthew Rush, who was a whippet of a right winger, and Stuart Slater was there as well. And Stuart was one of West Ham's best players in that period, and he was a brilliant player. And it was, listen, I've had to carry this tag of being slow all my life, and listen, I can't argue the point. I am slow. That's how it was. So maybe the question mark over, my pace, and at the time I wasn't the heaviest. I was only a skinny little 18-year-old. So maybe there was question marks over, speed and physicality. I'd like to think there wasn't too many question marks over how I handled the ball. But I went out on loan, and I agreed at the time that it was the next sort of stage of my development to get out and play some senior football. And once I'd gone out there and I come back, and I did well at Shrewsbury in the loan period. And then when I come back, they made the offer for me, but Harry had put a new contract in front of me, and it was more down to me. And to be fair to Harry, he did say, look, here's your chance. You either stay here and for another 2 years, and we'll see how you get on, or we'll happily accept the offer. It was kind of, he wanted to help me grow up, is how I took it, and the decision's yours. And I just thought, 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon means too much to me. The thought of going back and playing combination football didn't appeal to me. So I possibly could have stayed at West Ham. I certainly don't regret leaving. It's a shame I never got at least one opportunity, but I understand how it is. I understand obviously even more now I'm a manager, but I certainly don't regret getting out and playing football as I did from such an early age.
Yeah.
And then you kind of, after that, obviously go on loan to Leyton Orient for a little while, but then really your whole senior appearances really kick off to a host of clubs, don't they? And it's just phenomenal. About 600 appearances for clubs. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, listen, ultimately if someone had said when I first walked through the door at Chadwell Heath and I was signing my YTS forms that you're going to make over 600 appearances, you're going to play for this club and that club, you know, most kids, I would like to hope, like I was, I'd have bit someone's arm off. And I don't regret any of it, to be honest, not one bit. If that's all I ever wanted to do, I was very fortunate enough to not pick up too many injuries, mainly because I didn't tackle. I couldn't run quick enough to hurt any muscles. So I was quite fortunate in that respect. But the only thing that I broke my shoulder, I say I broke it, one of my teammates who I still am friends now, a guy at Wickham called Steve Brown, decided that he'd had enough of me in training one day and flipped me up in the air and I broke my shoulder. But I forgive him for it. So, but no, to play that amount of football, I loved every minute of it. I miss it every day, and I'm grateful that I had that chance. But it all started at Shrewsbury and finished at Dagenham.
With the
if you could go on, Lee. Sorry, mate.
I was just going to ask about such a good career, but obviously you go from Barnet to Wickham, and you have a little spell at Brighton, and then the move to Ipswich comes about. And listen, Ipswich is a very, very big football club. How did that come about, and what was that like for you?
Well, listen, I absolutely loved playing for Barnet, and I enjoyed my time at Shrewsbury, no doubt about that. That helped me sort of grow up and man up a little bit, being a young man away from home and getting my first taste of football. I had a short loan spell at Orient, which I enjoyed. And then it was really Barnet where I started to make my name, because for the first few years of my career, I didn't have my own name. I was known as nephew of, because it was always nephew of Tony Currie. And I thought, that's not actually my name. My name's Darren. But listen, don't get me wrong, Tony was an outrageous footballer, and I was proud of what he'd done as a player, and I'm proud to call him my uncle. But I needed to make my own name in the game, and I think my spell at Barnet helped me create that. I started to have silly haircuts and silly highlights and what have you, and that helped me stand out a bit. And you know, I started to get the tag of being like the Beckham of the lower leagues and what have you, because I could deliver a ball. And you know, I started to build this sort of reputation for myself. And you know, I then got a move from Barnet to Wickham, which was a great move. I mean, I didn't know what I was going into, but obviously looking back now, Wickham's a great club, absolutely brilliant football club. And I had a really good time there up until Tony Adams took over, and then it went a bit wonky under him. And then I find myself at Brighton, but by now, Lee, I'd gone from, so when I started at Shrewsbury, I was 18, and I'd hoped that I'd have got to a better level sooner, but I didn't. And it took me 11 years. So I was 29 when I eventually got to Ipswich. And I hope that sort of explains to people the sort of drive that I constantly had inside me, that I knew I could get to at least the Championship. The speed and the pace side of it was always going to be the question mark in the Premier League, which I never got to in the end. But I knew I could get to the Championship, and it took me 11 years. So the choice I made when I left West Ham as a kid, I thought I'd get up the leagues a bit quicker. Didn't turn out that way. But the path I took was gradual, and it took me 11 years, but I finally managed to get myself to Brighton in the Championship. And then that was when I started to, you know, obviously prove to people I was capable of playing at that level. And that's when the move to Ipswich come around.
Yeah, I mean, just going on that, I mean, you touched on it there. Potentially, do you think you reached your full potential? I mean, you know, everyone I speak to, Darren, about you, I've seen it myself. You know, technically, probably one of the best players in the Football League, and that's not a joke. That's facts, and you know, ability wise, and I'm sure you'd have played against a lot of Premier League clubs. And how did you find that yourself? Did you think you could cope at that level? I know pace and power and things like that, but quality wise, you're probably better than some of them Premier League players, but they had the legs on you. So how did you find against playing teams like that, playing in the Championship? Do you feel that you reached your full potential, or there was more to give?
I think there's always more. I'm forever telling my team now that, even when I think they've been outstanding, the target is always, can you do more? So there was no doubt you can always give more. Reaching my potential, I think my brain got quicker over the years. My legs, I wasn't in a straight line race. I was never going to beat anyone in a race, so I had to adapt my game and I learned how to go both ways to earn my yard, to get my crossing in and what have you. I think maybe as well, excuse me, the eras that you can potentially play in. When I think about back in the day when I first started out at Shrewsbury and my early years at Barnet and what have you, 4-4-2, 2 strikers, big man, little man, wingers on both sides, get it out to your wide men, get balls in the box. So that really benefited how I wanted to play. Nowadays, the big thing for everyone is ball retention, isn't it? So it's how you keep the ball, how you move the ball to move the opponent, etc. So I think I could fit into the modern day game, albeit there's not so many of your old school number 9s who want to get on the end of headers nowadays, and on the end of crosses, should I say. But I think the journey that I took to get to Ipswich, I think it humbled me and made me more grateful once I got there, because the reality is you might play in front of 1,000 or 2,000 at that club, and then I jumped to Wickham, so the crowds went up to 5,000, and then in the blink of an eye, you're walking out of Portman Road and there's 27,000 there. And I can understand why some people would find that pressure, but I felt like, oh great, there's more people to entertain. Yeah. So I embraced that stage, and as you know, Lee, when you play and when you work with players, and I say it to some of my players now, I believe have got huge potential. When you play with better players around you, everything you do will look 10 times better because you're just playing with better players around you. And that is in no way being disrespectful to people I played with at my early part of my career, Barnet, Wickham, etc. But once you get to a level like I was at with Ipswich, where everywhere I turned, I had internationals playing with me. Yeah. And that just brought more out of me and made some of the simple things that I'd done look 10 times better because of the person who's receiving. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
So it helped me. It helped me probably look better. But all I would say is I was only doing what I was doing 5 years ago when I was at Wickham, but I'm just doing it now at Portman Road. And why does it look better? I've been doing that for years. So once I'd got to where I'd got to, it was just do what I do, because that's why they've bought me. Do you know what I mean? So fulfilling potential. What I would say about my career is, in terms of medals and trophies and stuff like that, have I been successful? Maybe you wouldn't class it as successful, but what I've achieved in what I set out to be as a kid, as a professional football player, and play as many games as I could, then I've achieved. I wouldn't say I've been the most successful player.
Yeah, I mean, just going on to family side of things, because for me, obviously, with what Faye does with me and my family and the support I get, what was it like for you? Because I don't know if people know, but your family, well, a lot will know, but, your uncle with Sheffield United, Leeds, QPR, England, your brother is, I mean, I love the support that Lee gives you. I think he's your biggest supporter. He's amazing. Your father-in-law is obviously Martin O'Neill's ex-assistant wherever he went. Your wife is a fantastic support for you. So what's that like for you? Is it really important to you? Was it important for your career? And now as a manager, is it the same kind of support that you need?
And that's what it is, Lee, support. And yourself, there's always some dark days in your playing days and in your management days, and that's when you need the people around you. So I'm very fortunate enough that I've married into a footballing family. Like you say, Steve is, his CV is outrageous and what he's achieved in the game, and he is a huge support to me. And obviously we're not allowed out at the minute, but when we're allowed back out of our houses, we always have Sunday dinner with Emma's parents. So it's normally on the back of a game on the Saturday, and then we're having dinner before we watch Super Sunday. So there's plenty of football, plenty of chat. He's always giving me little tips along the way. Sometimes can be the most simple but most obvious thing, but every little helps. As you know, with Faye, I've got Emma that probably gets bored of me spending a weekend on the phone and saying the same things over and over. My assistant manager, Junior Lewis, who I've grown up with, I went to school with Junior. Yeah. He can talk for England, that boy. So when we're on the phone in preparation for a game or after a game, we talk for like an hour at a time. So her support can be quite quiet in the background, but just allowing me to get on with it shows enough understanding because she's been around it all her life. And then, like you say, with my uncle, when I was a kid, one thing that he always drummed into me is just being two-footed. Goes without saying, being two-footed. Now with your nephew. Yeah. I spoke to Alf the other day about him doing some work with both feet because it's crucial nowadays. So the support around you, I think, is terrific. My brother has been my biggest fan when I was a player. He used to cover the country, supporting me and getting behind me. And obviously, now I'm a manager. He's not only my fan; he's like my bodyguard as well.
I've seen him, and also, I didn't mention that your dad as well. Obviously, had a brilliant non-league career. So you've been really fortunate that side, mate, haven't you? You've sort of seen all sides of the football pyramid, really.
Listen, Saturday afternoon with my dad, he played for 9-10 non-league clubs, and we'd jump in the car with him. We'd head off all over the country, and before the game, you find that little patch of grass. I remember he played for Cheshire at one point, and they had a little five-a-side pitch that was about 20 by 20 up in the corner somewhere, and all the players' kids would meet up there and have a kick about. And then at half-time, you quickly go on the pitch and take a couple of penalties. And then at the end of the game, as they're walking off, all the kids are running on the pitch to have a kick about. And it was just, Saturday was non-league day with your dad. Then Sundays were Forest. It was just relentlessly. But it was brilliant, mate. Every day of the week, football.
And then before we finish on your senior career, away from like your family and all the support network you've just spoke so highly about, which is lovely to hear, who was your biggest influence on your playing career?
When I was a kid, it was Glenn Hoddle. Obviously, my uncle. I loved watching my uncle. I was mascot for QPR when Gary Waddock was captain, and I got a picture of me. I think I might have been 6 or 7 years old, walking out with Gary at Loftus Road, and I'm friends with Gary now, and obviously know him through the football side of things, and but Glenn Hoddle for me growing up. Even now, there's only really Zidane for me that I'm stuck between the two. But Hoddle was a kid growing up. He's all I ever wanted to be. And if ever I got me little skinny England shorts, they're always as tight as they could be and right up my backside because I wanted to be like Glenn. And his shorts were about that long, I think, back in the day. But yeah, just being like Hoddle, he was, what a sensational footballer. And then I did hear that when I was at Ipswich, how true it is, I don't know, but I think he was manager of Wolves at the time, and he tried to sign me. Now that would have been a dream.
Wow.
Playing for him. Yeah, but it never come about.
So finishing off your senior career, you then step into a number 2 role at Dagenham. How was that, and how did it come about?
Well, if I take you back a little bit before that, I signed for Chesterfield when I was 33, and I was fortunate enough to be given a 3-year contract. And when we went up to Sheffield, my wife and I made a pact that I'd start my coaching badges, and then she had a fashion degree but wanted to do something that coincided with the kids as they were growing up. So she went back to college up there and studied to become a technology teacher. So at 33, I wanted to get into the coaching side of it alongside my playing days. So she qualified to become a teacher, and I started on my coaching path. And then when I eventually come back down to Dagenham, I think I may have been 35, nearly 36. And while I was playing at Dagenham, I was taking the under 11s and under 12s and in their academy as well. So I'd started that path. So I was marrying the two together. And then I eventually took the under 21s and the development squad. And it just got to a point where John Steele had left Dagenham, and the coach at the time in the first team was a guy called Wayne Burnett. Yeah. And Wayne took over as first team manager, and he gave me the chance to become one of his assistants. So there was me and a guy called Warren Hackett, who I happened to play with at Barnet back in the days, a very good friend of mine. And Wayne wanted me and Warren to be his number twos. So I didn't officially retire, because at the time I'd packed up playing professionally. I was playing part-time for Hendon, and I had a short spell with obviously your dad Lee at Boreham Wood, but I'd moved on to Hendon as well. And it was now time to, do I try and grab another year or two of playing, or do I worry about the next 20 years of what I want to be in the future? So although I haven't officially retired, I made that choice to go and work with Wayne, and that's where my sort of senior coaching really started.
So when I think this is quite a good one for up and coming coaches, and a way to adapt to things, because obviously I know you, Darren, and I know you like to get your sides to really play football and get the ball down and play and look pretty on the eye. And obviously I think Wayne Burnett was very much like that, wasn't he? He liked to get it and play. And then obviously he goes and John Steele, you go in and work with John Steele, who is probably completely opposite to what you're all about. How do you find that, by going from one extreme to another? Did you adapt well enough to it? Did you find it difficult being a number two, working in something that might not be your kind of style? But I know how, you get on really well with John, and I don't want to belittle his style. Each style's to their own. But how was it for you? Did you find it difficult?
No, as you know, Lee, you have to adapt, don't you?
Yeah.
You have to have that as a quality about you, and I think that the best managers out there have to be able to adapt. So I think for me, sometimes it can come down to something as simple as terminology. So if you've got one guy saying, just get it up there, it's like long ball, but I'm saying to a player, and I might just be saying, like, breaking it down to the technique behind it and talking about it being a long pass, then straight away a long ball sounds different to a long pass, doesn't it? Yeah. So it can sometimes be the terminology. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't ever want anyone to just cover their eyes and bang it up the other end of the pitch. But the happy medium between that is there's always a right time to just clear your lines and get it up the other end of the pitch. So as much as I want teams to play, and I want them, the angle I choose to come from is, I want you to be a good decision maker, because the best players in the world make the best decisions. That's a fact. So if you're in your 6-yard box and you're being put under pressure, I don't want you to try and wall pass to get out of a situation. If you need to smash it in the car park, well, that's a good decision. So I want you to become a good decision maker. So I had to find the balance with how John wanted the team to play. And don't get me wrong, the career he's had,
amazing, yeah. He's
been successful, and from coaching badges and whatever, one thing they teach you is find a way, find a philosophy, and stand by it. And John had his way of doing things that he was successful with, so he was 100% right to stand by it. Now, we didn't always agree. He'd tell you that, and I'd always give my opinion. As you well know, Lee, I'll talk football with anyone and have an opinion. There's no right and wrong way about it. But between us, we learned. What I did learn was playing for him and then working alongside him. I started to understand his his reasons behind what he done.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't agree with everything he said, but I started to understand the reasons why he done it. And I just had to find that balance between and be that sort of, when you are a number two, that little go between the manager and the players, just helping them understand that he ain't wanting you to just smash it up there and you butter him up a little bit. No, but if you just get it out your feet and curl it in there and he makes that run, it's hell of a pass, by the way. And it's how I used to change the wording on what he wanted to make them think that it was more of a pass than just get it up there. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes it was just about the terminology.
So do you think working with John Steele and changing his terminology or into your language helped when you finally then ended up taking over as first team at Barnet?
Yeah, it can do. I mean, I like I say, I wouldn't say that. I would say I've learnt from John, because he was a fantastic man management. He knew how to hold court in a change room. He knew how to have a meeting with a crowd of people, and he knew how to be the boss. So, in that respect, learning that is fine. How you choose to get your opinion across to the players when you are the manager, we all have our own way about it. Some might rant and rave, some might not say a great deal, some might be quiet. I mean, my personal style is I like to give players their opinion. You're the ones playing the game, so I don't know everything and I don't see everything. But you have an opinion, I'll have an opinion, and somewhere in the middle, we might agree that we're both a bit right. So, I mean, I know whenever I go in at half-time, whenever I go in at full-time, I let them speak first because I'm interested to know what their opinion is. And then I'll chip in with what I've seen and how I see us either improving or getting better and whatever. So there's that little buy-in. And so I've taken maybe one or two little bits from different managers that I've played for, but then you turn it into your own style to take it forward.
I think that's really important as well. I mean, I'm one of them. I'm big on players having an opinion because I think it's important that they're heard, because if you just keep doing your own way and your own voice all the time, they'll just get bored and do their own thing in the end because they've had enough of it.
I mean, I've sat in change rooms and I've sat in team meetings with managers that go, right, so come on in, tell me what's what. And someone will go, yeah, well, I think this. And straight away they go, no, you're wrong. And they shoot him out of the sky straight away. Now, what is the point of that? Why ask the opinion? Because all you create then is next time the manager says, so what do you think? You're just going to get a silent change room. That's no good to anyone for me. So when I throw it out there and I say, come on in, tell me what you think, I'll never shoot anyone out the sky, but I might say, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but then, I'll give them my take on it and show a bit of understanding so they're always entitled to their opinion, because they're playing it at the end of the day. And I know sometimes I've gone in and I've thought, cool, we might be on the back foot a little bit here. And then I go in and ask them and they're like, no, we're quite comfortable. They ain't doing this and they ain't breaking us down or whatever. And you go, yeah, no, that's a fair point. And like I say, it's because I am the way I am about football. I don't think it's my way or the highway and I'm the only one who knows everything and I'm right all the time. So I allow them that opportunity to speak up.
Yeah, no, of course. Just a couple ones for me, mate. Just, you get the Barnet job. Did you, growing up, see yourself becoming a manager? When you get the Barnet job, you go to Sheffield United and beat them in the FA Cup. And I remember messaging you before and after, and a special occasion as well because they'd named the stand after your uncle. What was that like? And the last one on that is Chrissy Wilder. What was he like? Because he's one that I watch a lot. I rate him highly. What was he like with you? Was he okay? Because a lot of managers, when they lose, they lose their head and more worried about their own team. But, little thing on him as well. What was it all like?
So John had left over the Christmas period, and then I got the job on 30th of December, maybe New Year's Eve. Sorry, I'm going to be on the move because my wife and kids are back now. That's all right. So I'd got the job just before the start of the new year, and we had Dagenham away the first game. So I laid down one or two sort of principles in the Dagenham game, and then we'd had Bournemouth on New Year's Day in the week, and then we had Sheffield United away in the cup. So I had a derby, my old club, and Sheffield United away, all within the first week of management. So it sort of just come at me at 100 mile an hour. But what I remember from the Sheffield United game, the week building up, or the few days we had building up to the Sheffield United game, and I remember saying to Junior, our job is to take away as much fear as we can from the players. And because I don't like seeing people play with fear. So we had quite a relaxed week. We laid down one or two principles in the week that I still stick by now, that I believe you can have when you play against a 3-5-2. So we had a couple of defensive principles in place that I said that it was important that if we get this right, it will give us a chance. And, you know, it was all about, and this is how I felt as a player. I said to them, you've got to go and earn the respect of the Sheffield United players. Now, if every time they come to press you or put you under pressure, you give the ball away, straight away, the respect's gone, because they just think, non-league team, you know, they're not very good. But if you start handling the ball, and every time they put you under, you keep it and you move it on, and all of a sudden they won't start charging in on you. You get a little bit more time on the ball because you'd have earned their respect. And obviously with the build-up of it all, obviously the personal build-up with Tony and Sheffield United, etc. But the build-up for the club leading up to the Sheffield United game was massive. And then we turn up at Bramwell Lane and the boys walk out on the pitch. I've obviously been fortunate enough to play there and play in such amazing stadiums. But for some of them, you could see it was like, wow, look at this place. So, you know, it was important we had our principles in place to take away the fear. And then we started the game. And I say it in every game we play, the first one or two things you do, make sure they're positive so you can build from that. And all of a sudden, we started to handle the ball. We started to move the ball okay. And you could see there would have been naturally a little bit of fear in individuals. But you could see very quickly that we started to grow and think, no, we've got nothing to worry about here. And in the end, we were brilliant on the day, absolutely superb. And although we only won 1-0, we quite possibly could have won by at least another goal because we had some good opportunities. So the boys were absolutely terrific. And after the game, Chrissy Wilder stood and applauded and shook all of my players' hands as we, and bearing in mind, final whistle goes, we shake hands, then we're over celebrating with the fans. So we was out there for a good sort of 10 minutes or so after the final whistle, and Chrissy stood at the tunnel and waited for every single one of my players to come in and shook every player's hand and pretty much, you know, applauded them for their efforts in the game. And I know Chrissy anyway, so we went and had a beer with him after, and he was very, very complimentary. As complimentary as you can be, but obviously you could see he's disappointed. But you know, he's probably going, "Do you want a beer or a right-hander?" Like, you know. But he was very complimentary of what we'd done, and listen, it turned out to be a perfect day for us. And thankfully, with my connections to Sheffield, they went on and got promoted. So it was and this is now, I've been a manager for 7 days, so I think, right, I've cracked it. This is easy. So I might call it a day now, to be fair.
How do you go into a game like that? I mean, I can only talk that, you know, we went to Fylde last year, and you know, Biggleswade Town versus Fylde is two leagues higher. Fylde were very good at the time last year as well, and we had them watched once, and I remember speaking to the guy who watched them, and he said, don't overanalyze them, go and be you, and just make sure you're very hard to beat. And did you go and watch them? Did you do a lot of homework on them, or was it very much, let's go and be us, let's go and be hard to beat, let's be calm in possession of the ball? And what was different between going to that game to then going to another game and analysing someone in your own league?
I don't overanalyze the opponent. You know, you touch on their shape, you touch on the style that they might bring, you touch on their one or two key players, obviously set pieces. So there's enough that you you talk about the opponent, but whether it's Sheffield United or whether it's a league game, we focus and we give them enough information on the opponent. You know, my right back, you're up against a left winger today who's right-footed. He comes inside all the time. He wants to give and go and get on the outside. You know, little snippets like that will just help them through the game. But ultimately, it's about us. You've got to make it about us. Otherwise, I can't talk about us playing with no fear and then spend the whole of the hour before the game analysing Sheffield United, because all you're doing is putting, yeah, he's brilliant. I mean, he's good and he's quick, and you're kind of contradicting yourself. So This is what they do. They're not bad at this. That's why they are third in the Championship. This is what they do. But I tell you what, if you do that and you do that and you do that, they won't like that. We'll be all right and we do that. So you touch on the opponent, of course you do. We all do. But I like to focus as much effort on my team and what we can do, because I put trust in them and I believe in them as players. So I can't then contradict myself.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that.
Very similar to what Darren Currie was saying in the last interview we did, where he was saying that he stripped his analysis right back now, whereas he used to watch, I think it was 3 games of the opponent before the game. So he was ending up watching 12 games of football a week, which just absolutely frazzled him.
Yeah, and you can overanalyze, and you know what? When you get to the top level, and you're talking like the very top 6, 8 of the Premier League, where you can pretty much guarantee how Salah's going to play and how Kane's going to play, because they play brilliantly every week. But which is why they're at that level, because of the consistency they have. When you get to sort of League 2 and beyond, as we all know, we're all striving for that consistency. So a player that might have been absolutely outstanding 7 days ago, last Saturday, might not play anywhere near that this Saturday. So I've told my defenders or my midfield that this geezer last week was unbelievable. And then he don't play great this week. They're then going to look at me and go, Gaff, I don't know what he's on about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you give them little snippets and you give them enough information for me that gives them a picture of what might happen in the game. But ultimately, I will always finish with saying, but listen, he ain't played against you yet. And if you're at your game today, don't matter what he brings to the table. So my way of sort of doing my analysis always finishes with what we're going to do, because we're better than that. Do you know what I mean? So you give them that little shot of confidence to say, no fear today, I'll be all right up against him. Brilliant.
Well, look, we've brought you right up to today. We've got some quick fire questions for you. They don't have to be quick. We tried it with Darren, and
I don't do anything quick. We must have worked that out. I don't do anything quick now.
So here goes. How do you deal with the highs and lows of being a manager compared to when you were a player?
I think it's easier to get over disappointment as a player, because you will have a ball at your feet again, normally the next day or certainly the day after that. As a manager, you know, you're responsible for 25 people. Certainly in my case, let's say, I know squad sizes vary, but I've got my own disappointment to deal with, and then I've got the 11 that I've picked, the 5 subs that think I'm an arsehole because I picked the wrong team, and then the 6 that I've left in the stand that just can't stand the sight of me. So you have to, as disappointed as I am, I've got to deal with a whole lot of other people's disappointment. So managing that is far more difficult than the disappointment you suffer as a player.
Biggest achievement as a player?
As a player, I suppose, like I say, just the amount of games I managed to play in and the clubs I played for. You know, I had a couple of promotions, although not involved. I was sub for Dagenham at Wembley, and then not involved for Derby. So there's sort of really good moments in my career, but not. I mean, I would say the highlight probably is some of the goals that I've scored along the way. They're always quite memorable. So they're probably good achievements, yeah.
Best player you've played with and against?
Best player I've played with is Jim Magilton. Epitomises how a professional should be. You know, brilliant football player, unbelievable football brain, angry man because he wanted to win. You know, wanted to fight everyone in the opposition's change room, wanted to fight everyone in his own change room, but it all come from the right place because he was so desperate to do well and be successful. And a wonderful, wonderful player, handles the ball beautifully. Best player I've played against. I played for Luton against Liverpool in the FA Cup, and we drew 1-1 at Kenilworth Road, and they left out Alonso, Gerrard and Torres. And then when we went up to Anfield, they brought them all back, and I looked at Gerrard, and he was like, it was about 6'2", and his stride was about 10 metres long as well. He can sprint like the wind, and him and Alonso, the way they passed the ball to each other that day, I was just mesmerised. And Gerrard he was outrageous, unbelievable footballer.
That's amazing, that is. Best manager you played under and why?
Joe Royle.
Yeah.
Joe Royle. For the whole package, I would say. I had a short spell at Derby under Billy Davis, and Billy was very detailed. Very, very detailed with his work, but very good. I played for a short period under John Gorman, and he's just the best character you can ever meet. And obviously John Steele, who I've had various parts of my career under, but Joe Royle for the complete package. Absolutely knew how to get the hairs on the back of your neck standing up. He certainly didn't mind telling you when you let him down. But the balance between man management and the balance between, you know, we're having a bit of fun or now we're working with a purpose, he just seemed to get the blend right all the time. And he was an unbelievable character as well. Very, very witty as well. So you couldn't outwit him with some verbal. So, I mean, he was just, I'm going to be a little bit biased because he signed me, but Joe Royle for the complete package was incredible for me.
Describe your management style. Is it a lot of coaching or is it a lot of managing?
I like to do a bit of both, to be honest, because I ain't got the biggest coaching staff. There's only myself and Junior. And Junior's very good and detailed and likes to get in and do his bit. And I do the coaching. Obviously, I have to. It's part of my job, and it's how I want us to play ultimately. Me and Junior are very much on that same page, but the management style of it, what I enjoy about the management is the one-on-ones with the players, how you can help them individually and then mould that into the team structure. So I would say it has to be a combination of both managing and coaching. And that's how I would want it to be going forward, because I enjoy being on the grass and putting on sessions and drills and doing all the tactical stuff as well. So a nice combination of the both.
Was it always difficult? I mean, for me, it was always quite tough because everyone would always think I'd get a leg up in anything I'd done in football. But you touched on it earlier. Was it hard for you, Darren, as well, with having an uncle and people think you're getting a leg up because of who your uncle was? Was that always tough?
I know what you're saying. I don't think it was a leg up, but when you've got someone like Tony who's in your background, you know, and you know, I had the long bloody highlights and what have you, and we kind of moved the same, and I had similar attributes. So people maybe questioned whether I was trying to model myself on him or whatever. It was, for the first early part of the career, it was always nephew of. It was, and I needed to create my own name. But I didn't see that as an issue. I mean, I was and I still am. I'm the nephew of an ex-England international who's an unbelievable footballer. So I'll take the positives out of that, like I do most things. It's not a negative. I'd rather be Tony's nephew than one or two other ex-England internationals.
We've got a couple last few things, mate. We've got a couple of followers that have asked some questions. So Trev Griffiths has asked, who's the best player you played with at Wickham?
Oh, that's a good one. There was a couple there that I really enjoyed playing with, but one in particular, a boy called Michael Simpson, who was a little midfielder. He used to play central midfield with Danny Ballman, who's still playing, by the way, at Crawley Town. I think he's about 48 now, Danny. But to be fair to him, he's still a very good player, and he was a brilliant player then. But them two were great in there. But Simo, for me, should have played higher. I mean, when I talk about football, and I want good decision makers and football brains and thinkers, I mean, Simo, for his size and his physicality, was a hell of a footballer, and he was a lot of my supply line, to be fair, being out on the wing. But yeah, Michael Simpson was a very good player.
Yeah. One of our other listeners, Luca, wants to know what's the best goal you've ever scored. I think you've touched on a couple of them today.
Yeah, I mean, my very first goal, my debut for Shrewsbury, was a very good goal. I was happy I sort of wiggled into the situation and put the ball away. I scored a half volley for Luton in a derby against Northampton. That one of them ones, and you hear all the cliches, but as soon as it left my foot, I knew it was in. So that was good. I scored a chip against Notts County for Wickham in the FA Cup, which I'm happy with. So, you know, I would probably, if I really had to lean towards one, I'd say my goal for Luton against Northampton, because it was nice technique, and I'm a bit of a fan of technique.
Last couple from me, mate. I think I know the answer to this one. Not sure. Messi or Ronaldo?
Oh, Messi. All day.
Yeah, I thought so, mate. I thought so. No, and listen, just wrapping it up, mate. What's your hopes for the rest of this season? Do you think it'll be wrapped up now? Do you think we can get it finished? And because I know you was in a good position of getting into them playoffs, mate. What do you think's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few discussions, haven't there? So they've been talking about a points per game, which would obviously benefit us and put us into 7th. Listen, I was confident of the path we was taking. You know, I think we was 1 defeat in about 17 or 18 games. And then we finished with a victory at Woking on the road on the Tuesday before the lockdown started. I'd like the outcome to be that the season continues. I think that goes without saying. All football people want that. The reality of that could be very different. But if it ends up a points per game system where it catapults us up to 7th and we then play the playoffs, and me personally, I think the points per game system is probably the fairest, because you're talking about what's already happened.
Yeah,
they're facts. You can't get away from that. You know, we can all say, well, I've got 10 games left and I'll win 8 of them. Well, every team would have that argument.
Yeah.
But points per game, listen, I'm obviously biased because it will benefit us, but I think that's a fair enough system. Whether we get to that stage and then the playoffs get played out, who knows? But you know, we was in a good place, and I was really happy with how we was playing, and you could see us building momentum into the back end of the season. So that was a real shame for us, because it was all coming together and building up nicely towards the end.
Yeah, no, listen, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, mate. I really enjoyed it. Fantastic career, and I think you're going to have a great manager's career as well, mate. I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys. I've really enjoyed my time.
Cheers, Darren.
Thank you. Cheers, chaps. Thank you very much.
Mate.
Cheers.
Take care. Bye-bye, mate.
Thank you.